Now, during this course, we intend to go through each implementation phase and discuss in detail the methods and techniques proposed there. So, let's begin with the preparation analysis and how to set up the working structure and analyze the city logistics situation. The first step is the formulation of a small team inside the municipality which will have domain expertise, knowledge of the assumed priorities, and be familiar with city logistics policy and regulation frameworks. Unfortunately, until now, in the majority of the European cities, there are no directly responsible structures in the municipalities that deal with city logistics planning, which was also one of the main reasons for the inefficient until now planning on this domain. Now, in case of lacking the capacity, which is quite common, a city authority could consider getting external support or engaging a neutral partner as facilitator on this process. For example, in the case of Greece, we as EARTH and as a research institute, we worked together with many municipalities and supported them in the development of their SUMP and their SULP. However, we cannot forget that planning is a participatory process requiring also a stakeholder governance scheme. This is why a city authority should identify the relevant actors that are operating in their city and then establish a city logistics multi-stakeholder platform as a mechanism for working together and co-designing future policies. You may consult also past experiences on developing MSPs, such as Copenhagen's case, or you can identify what is the perfect mixture of participants in relevant initiatives, as was identified by the Horizon 2020 Novolog project. Following this process, the city will be able to go to the second step of the implementation phase and co-define the development process and scope of the plan as proposed by the SUMP guidelines. After that, the city is ready to go deeper in the analysis of the current situation of the sector. Basic knowledge on cities' urban freight transportation implies knowing the magnitude of the daily urban freight transport flows and their spatial distribution, or the average daily service trips by category of major freight transport generator. So in order to do that, and it is crucial to identify the existing information sources. Are there, for example, ITS in your city? Do you have ANPR cameras or radar on your streets? And cooperate with data owners. However, because collecting a major set of data would be quite expensive and sometimes impossible for the city authority, a minimum data set of urban freight transportation activities has been identified by the Horizon 2020 Novolog project in order as the best mix of data in order for you to have a more clear view and understanding on the current situation of your city logistics. Given the private and quite confidential nature of some data, the engagement of the stakeholders either through MOUs or service level agreements might be also needed. While the use of online databases, such as those developed by past EU initiatives, such as the CityLab Observatory or the Novolog tools, could be also useful. Finally, recent research efforts emphasizing the need for setting up and developing logistics living labs, which will be formulated by a user-centered, open innovation ecosystem, and through co-creation approaches will integrate research and innovation processes in real-life communities. The European Network of Living Labs is an international non-profit association which aims to promote these goals and support the cities in developing such initiatives. One of Europe's largest living clubs is the case of Thessaloniki, as an example. The entire city of Thessaloniki is a platform for testing technological and innovative solutions for mobility, cooperative and autonomous vehicles, and was recently extended to urban freight transportation. Following the principles of an ecosystem, in ThesLab are engaged end users and relevant community stakeholders from both passenger and freight transportation, who support this initiative through the provision of data and knowledge exchange. So ThesLab collects, filters, processes and analyzes data related to the mobility of persons and goods, and develops innovative services for facilitating everyday life. These data and services are available to public and private institutions. So So more information can be found in the links presented in this slide. Now, besides the quantitative data that provide an insight on the operational status of the sector, the qualitative data are also very important, because it is very crucial for a city authority to identify which are the factors that affected the sector, and thus gain a clear understanding on the main problems and opportunities. For doing that, the reader may find in the topic guide suggestions on using tools that have been developed by experts on this field for facilitating the consensus building process on this particular issue, as well as simulation models and freight generation models for describing the current and future urban freight transport demand. Now let's go to the strategy and vision development process. This implementation phase is basically based on the continuation of engagement with the stakeholders and the use of tested research approaches for building jointly future logistics scenarios. So during an MSP meeting, the cities proposed to define the common vision for the cities and identify the potential areas of intervention. It is important here to map the value interactions among the different stakeholders and weight their role in the planning process, in order to be able to set the main priorities and measurable targets that the city's ecosystem intends to achieve. Here, a city may incorporate also the aspect of innovation and resilience in their plan by developing narrative scenarios and securing the continuous monitoring of the plan. For more information, you can consult the new topic guide on planning for more resilient and robust urban mobility, and the dedicated chapter on city logistics, which included best practices from EU initiatives such as the Horizon 2020 Sprout and Harmony projects. Finally, the last implementation phase that SULPS deals with is the measure planning. This step reassures the selection of the most appropriate measure for a city given the current urban environment, the ability of a measure either isolated or combined to achieve the desired impact, the readiness of the interventions area, and finally the adoption of the measure by the city's ecosystem. So in order for this to be achieved, it is important for a city, firstly, to go through the online databases and tools for gaining insight on past experiences and identifying measures and interventions applied to cities with similar typologies. Then, discuss the outcomes with the stakeholders and make the final list of preferable measures for your city. Some indicative examples of initiatives that have been tested in Europe, around Europe, are, for example, electric self-driving pods for cargo hitching tested now in Padova, the development of lockers and micro-consolidation centers in Valencia and Barcelona, or the implementation of logistics hotels in Paris, and the use of cargo bikes in Mechelen, or the night hour deliveries in New York. Here you see different initiatives in different cities, which means that you have to identify what is the best measure for your city, your needs, your typology, and your stakeholders. Now, in the end, it would be good, and it is crucial, I may say, to sign a service level agreement or MOU among the members of the multi-stakeholder platform in order to secure the adoption of the measure while set the main responsibilities and time plan of the action. And last but not least, we must not forget that every successful policy needs also the wide political and public support, which should be also reassured by the city authorities. I think that's all. These 8 implementation steps, these tools and techniques would help any city to identify what is the best measure for their cities, understand the problems and the opportunities of their city logistics sector, cooperate with their stakeholders, and then being able to make a more efficient and effective city logistics services. I want to thank you all for your attention. If there are any questions or concerns, or you need any more information on the tools and the methods that were presented here, do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you.